statements, 15 minutes of questions, 2 minutes close. We start with the Republican candidate, and that is Jimmy T. Smith, the incumbent.
All right, now I think this thing's working and everybody can hear me in the back. I am Jimmy T. Smith, your state representative, and I'll tell you, in 2 years, one of the main things that we've noticed is we're in a downturn economy. Everybody that you heard come up here and talk previously is talking about one thing: money for their budgets. Florida has had a hard time recovering. But if you'll notice, we went from 12% unemployment down to 10.5 in Hernando and 10.3 in Citrus County. Jobs and the future of Citrus County is what I ran on and what I'm running on right now. We need to make sure that we get the infrastructure that we need. We need the Suncoast. We need to have the infrastructure Hernando County has. Why is it Hernando County has Highway 41 that has 6 and 4 lanes and it's only 2 here? We need to make sure we have that infrastructure. Why? Because when you look around this room, you're going to notice there's young people here. Those young people want jobs. Those young people want a future. And that's what a representative who works hard for your community will do for you. Make sure that our young people, our children and grandchildren, can live here, grow here, and enjoy this county. Now, I've been the most proactive representative this district has ever had. I've been a full-time legislator, and in that, one of the very first things I did was to develop a career and technical education task force. Why? Because even the Chronicle has stated we lack the skills to get businesses to come here. Career and technical education is what you need to entice a business to come here, as well as tax breaks for businesses, incentives. If you'll look at the things that we've done, we passed an enterprise zone bill, which allows Citrus County to establish an enterprise zone. This gives certain tax breaks to corporations to come here. Now that also gives local businesses tax breaks also to move into that enterprise zone and grow and develop more and create more jobs. And that's what we want. Citrus County is a beautiful county. And part of that also is our parks and recreation. The Rails to Trail is a fine example. You'll see me on there periodically with my daughter, and excuse me if she runs you off the trail. She's only 5. But what you'll see, though, is that we have pushed hard to work with people in the community. Floral City wanted the railhead to be closer to 40 or 48 down in Floral City. And coming through me, we pushed with the State Parks and Recreation to make sure that happened. That drives local business in Floral City. So you don't always need a corporation. Sometimes it's just simple things like moving the railhead so that more business happens in Floral City and we can have a better economy and we can fund all the agencies that we need to fund. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Argenziano. Many of you already know me. I've served you in the Florida House, the Florida Senate, and on the Public Service Commission. We had to battle for what is right many times. We've had to fight to keep our water here. We've had to fight to stop unjustified telephone and electric rate increases, attacks on our education, or those who educate, or even our law enforcement. We had to fight to provide quality of care for our frailest of seniors in nursing homes and trying to merely raise Florida to the federal minimum safe standard. We fought to the never-ending fight for priority budget spending rather than legislators' self-gain and self-interest budget squandering. And we've had major fights with the pharmaceutical industries together to permit generic drugs to get to you cheaper. We've also had other great successes working with the good guys. In protecting our springs, keeping public schools public, strong, and alive, keeping the dirtbag predators away from our children in the Jessica Lunsford Act, which I am proud has been adopted nationwide. In the Adam Walsh Act, cyber crimes, scam busters, and many others. Many good policies are being torn apart by blind following legislators, and you are being sold out. But serving is not only about trying to stop, it's not only the good stuff you pass, it's also about trying to stop the bad stuff, the things you know will harm the people. That cannot be done by sitting quietly and voting 100% with what that leadership demands. Because leadership's allegiance, and make no mistake, is to the big money special interests. My opponent votes 100% of the time with leadership, much to the destruction of good public policy. Great examples are some of the ballot initiatives, amendments, court packing, religious domination, denial of science and data in the creation of public policy, unfunded mandates to counties, attempted violation of the Constitution, even when they're warned. Experience is badly needed in this time, and honest adults with courage to stand up to the special interest agendas. My experience as a public servant is unmatched. I am an American above party any day. America comes before any political party. Please visit my website, nancyargenziano.com, where I have posted about the many lies that you have received in your mailbox. Please go to that website, and I need your vote to bring some common sense and to make sure that you are the only special interest in Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you for being here tonight.
This question is for both candidates, and I would like Representative Smith to respond first. How is your style of legislating different from your opponent, and do you believe that it's effective?
Well, my style is different, and first I go to my opposition. The people who are going to oppose the bill are the people who you address first. Why is it that you don't like it? What is it that we can work on this bill to make it better? And when I lose on a bill, I don't get angry. I once again find out what is it in the future that if we bring this bill back up can make it better legislation. Because it's not about me. It is about this entire state of Florida having good legislation. And the example of that is that I passed 10 laws in 2 years, and in that, every single one of them has Democratic support.
Argenziano, if you could respond to that question.
Well, the most obvious difference is that I was born with a brain to use and think, and it's called independent thinking. I'm sorry. Not saying that he wasn't. I'm saying that I am independent in thinking. And that is a proven history. Now, excuse me. That's not fair. Now, may I continue answering the question? Listen, I have fought for this district for many, many years and proven my independence in thinking. Let me tell you, if you don't think that in the Florida legislature you are being sold out, then you need to go up to Tallahassee and start watching things a little bit closer than we have paid attention to. My independent thinking is what allowed me to protect you from the special interests that really have bought Tallahassee. When you have people who just follow and go along, you are not protected. And I can't believe that that's what anybody really wants. I don't think that the legislative leaders in Tallahassee, no matter what party they're in, are 100% right on everything they pass. And that are some of the main differences. As far as effectiveness, I have a history of showing over the years how effective I've been. The bad guys don't like me, and that's the truth. And because I stand up to them and point out what they are trying to do to you. And that are some of the main differences that I can give you in a short period answer.
Address this to Representative Smith. Your opponent says that you voted 100% with your party leadership. Why is that a good thing for your constituents?
I'll tell you why it's a good thing for my constituents. We'll use the example of the retirement. We made an adjustment to the retirement system, and my answer was 0. I said 0% change. Change it for the new people. Don't change it for the people who currently have contracts. Now, of course, a 0 vote or a no vote means that that original 5% would have stood. And what you do is you go up there and you explain to them what it is that you want, and we worked them from 5% down to 3%. So, through working with people who do not agree with us, we actually lowered it 2%.
Question?
Ms. Argenziano, it appears you do not think that's a good thing, so could you tell us why you do not think it's a good thing?
Because when you vote 100%, anybody in this room who could believe that any legislative leadership that is passing every bill, every single one of them is good for you, then you really don't understand what's happening in the political world. There are many bills that have passed that are detrimental, that have been destructive to Citrus County, Hernando County, and to Florida in general. A tax on the education, public education. The amendments that you have right now are incredible that they've been voted. To vote away local control in many, many instances with bills that have passed that he's supported. I mean, I could go down a list, and that list will be on my website, so you can see why 100% voting. I can tell you from my history, things that I've had to oppose of my own leadership would have been detrimental. Our water would have been in Tampa a long time ago if I said yes to everything that they wanted to do. Our seniors in nursing homes would have been without quality of care if I said yes to everything they wanted. And our Constitution wouldn't have been so violated, would have been so violated if I said yes to every unconstitutional thing that this legislature keeps passing. So very important to have independent thinking.
This question is for Ms. Argenziano. Some say you have a confrontational style with people you disagree with.
Yeah.
Is that a rumor? Does that style benefit your constituents, in your opinion? And if so, why?
Well, you know what? It's confrontational when the bad guys are trying to hurt the people I represent. Absolutely. Rather than sitting there and just keeping quiet and letting harm come to the people I represent, you can't sit there and be quiet and not fight for something that you believe in or to protect the people back at home. And when you sit there and be quiet, they are harmed. Confrontational, you look at my history. Mr. Smith talks about him being the best legislator that there's ever been here. Look at our legislative histories. Look at the accomplishments, the bills that I've passed, going up to being invited to the United States Senate on some of the things that I have passed. The Jessica Lunsford bill that was all nationwide. The many committees that I've chaired. The Senate presidents, 3 Senate presidents came to Citrus County to tell you that I never forgot where I came from, and they helped me to pass legislation. And let me tell you something about bipartisan behavior. It is extremely important in this process, and whether you agree philosophically with the other party's approach or not, you still have to work together and respect the fact that they're elected by people of this state of Florida. So my history shows that confrontation is used when needed, and I have to ask, why is it okay for men in the process to be able to be confrontational when it hurts the people back home, but it's so different for women?
I'd like to do a follow-up with you, Mr. Argenziano. Some people also say that because of your testiness when it comes to standing up for your constituents, that with the Republican-dominated legislature, that you will be cut out and will become ineffective.
Yeah, those are the bad guys who really want to keep me from showing you what they're actually doing to you in Tallahassee. They need people to sit along and just go along. Let me tell you how there's effective. Can you hear? I'm sorry. There's effective, there's ineffective, and then there's destructive. Even if you did nothing else, if you leave somebody who just votes 100% of the time party line, it's not effective. That's destructive. That's destructive. Let me tell you, there is a caucus forming in the Florida House. And I've reached out to many, they've reached out to me. I've had the support and respect of members who are still serving in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party. They're tired of being told what to do. They're waiting for at least 7 votes, 7 more seats to come in with some independent thinking, because that creates a caucus. And that caucus is a voting block against the supermajority vote that we have in the procedural votes, for the procedural votes in the Florida House. That starts the ball rolling to change. Anytime you have any party that is so far in advance, so far in the majority, it all of a sudden becomes very arrogant and does not create good policy. I have had the support of many in both sides of the aisle, and I appreciate that. Your alternative is someone who could get up there, let's just say, even if it's to ring the bell, to let you know that legislation that they are passing is going to hurt you. Would you rather have somebody just go along and hurt you and not tell you what's coming, give you what you deserve, since you cast a vote for that person to go up and represent you? So I've been very effective, and that's old hogwash and used in every election I've ever had.
Thank you.
Representative Smith, Could you tell us why you recommended Robert Gucher Sr. to be on the Citrus County Hospital Board of Trustees?
Very simple. I asked for a list from both the foundation and the board of trustees. Only one sent a list, looked over it, made sure there was nothing criminal, and forwarded the list.
Ms. Argenziano, did you support that recommendation?
Would I support that recommendation? First of all, I was in office at the time.
You were not in office.
No, but anybody that one of the lawyers for the hospitals on both sides of that issue says, here's what you need to do. Here's again, I remember reading his comments where Bill Grant gave it to me and that's what I did. I didn't even read it. I'll tell you what I don't support is if you are a sitting legislator or any elected official, if you are going to appoint someone to any position in government, you better make darn sure that you've read it and understand who you are recommending for that appointment. The whole thing stinks to high heaven with the Gucher incident, and it doesn't make me feel good that our elected representative just passed it along because Bill Grant told him to.
Could you also elaborate about Lynn Dostal, who also ran in that race?
I have nothing to do with it. Lynn Dostal was a legitimate Democrat who ran in the race right before I announced I was running. Lynn Dostal made his own comments, very independent from what I know of him. Didn't even really know Lynn Dostal. Matter of fact, I don't think I ever met him before he called me to ask me. He said, I'm hearing people are asking you to run. Are you considering it? And I told him I was considering it, and I would let him know if I decided to run. But what I do understand is that he stopped a shill from being put on the ballot. He stopped the fraud that may have been taking place upon the electorate. So I have to give him credit for doing that.
This question is for both candidates. Should the law be repealed that allows utility companies such as our local Progress Energy to charge ahead of time for construction of new nuclear power plants years before they come online and the consumer benefits?
Why?
I'll start with Representative Smith.
Very simply, the nuclear plants, first of all, hopefully they'll be built. We need the jobs. The second part is working with Representative Vasalinda, who's a Democrat. She submitted a bill for that. I sponsored or co-sponsored that bill. Unfortunately, it was never heard in committee and did not move.
Same question?
Yes, ma'am.
I do not support that. In 2006, that energy bill that came before the Florida legislature was subject to the same shenanigans that is happening through the state in the legislative process. The energy bill was to reduce CO2 emissions, was to create alternative energies, open the door for some alternative energies in the state of Florida, and it was relatively a good energy bill, very large bill. It went through its policy committees, policy committees where you make changes to policy. It is known that when you take a bill and take it to the Ways and Means or a fiscal committee, policy is not to be changed there. If it's going to be changed there, it has to be sent back to a substantive committee, a policy committee. What they did, the next Senate president at that time was Jeff Atwater. They slipped in an amendment in the Ways and Means Committee to add that language in. And not one senator knew that, I should say that, any senator that did not sit on the Ways and Means Committee. And by the way, Senator Fasano sat on that Ways and Means Committee, knew they had snuck this in the bill, and never said a word on the Senate floor. We had read the bill. Those of us who read bills in the legislative process read the bill, made sure we could count on the fact that it was not going to be changed after its policy committees. It is wrong. 39 senators voted for that bill, and almost all but one in the House voted for that bill, thinking it was the clean energy bill that we tried to follow through the process. It should have never been. If we knew about it on the Senate floor, there are many legislators who would have at that time filed an amendment or tried to change it or asked questions. It did not go through the public policy of committees and been heard. I would never have voted for it. And when I got on the Public Service Commission, I made sure I dissented and told them why.
Okay, last question.
Earlier we had a conversation about our school district, so I'd like to ask a question of both of you. And that is, should public money be used to send kids to private schools? And if so, should those private schools be held to the same mandates as public schools? Mr. Smith, and then Mr. Argenziano.
All right, thank you very much. Our tax dollars go to paying for students. It's the students' money. And yes, I think that private schools should be allowed to use that money to educate our students. Because there are certain private schools, you can look at Peppermint Academy, for example, that specifically deal with ESE students. We should give parents as much access to success for their students as possible. Now, the other part of that question is real simple. We keep talking about how we should bring up the other schools to a higher standard. Well, working with some of the representatives right now, what we're trying to do is bring down some of the standards that we, in the past, have established for the school systems. If you have a school system that is highly successful like ours, what you want to do is give them the same rules that we give to the private schools.
Mrs. Are you finished, sir?
Yeah.
Ms. Argenziano?
No, I do not believe that. I believe in the separation of church and state, number one. And number two, I do believe in charter schools, which are public schools. And the years of experience in the legislature, in the back rooms with leaders of this state, I know what the attempt is. And the attempt is to get rid of public schools. That is the attempt behind a lot of these moves. The movement to send public dollars to private schools. Excuse me, excuse me a minute. I'd like to finish this thought. The movement to send public dollars to private schools has not followed with legislation that says you will be equally accountable in any way. The same accountability does not go to the private schools as it does to our public schools. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to allow the money to go away from the public schools, then you have to have strict accountability, and it has to be the same measures that we have for our public schools. Absolutely.
Candidates, let's go ahead with our 2-minute closing statements, and Nancy Argenziano will begin.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone being here this evening. You have to learn about your government. You know, we have men and women, and I have a son in the Air Force we see people coming back fighting in other countries for representative government. They lose their lives for what we hold dear in this country, representative government. And it's being sold every day. If it doesn't anger you, it should. We have men and women losing arms and legs in other countries for what we're selling out here today. Campaign finance reform is a must. No matter what happens in this election, is a must, because you are being sold out. I bring a history with you. Yes, I can be confrontational when it needs to be. I don't think you want me sitting there just agreeing with anything they do, even when it hurts you. And yes, I bring accomplishment like no other, and no other in recent years here, because I have never sold you out, no matter what they dangled over my head. It could be on the Public Service Commission. Nancy, if you'd just shut up and let them have those unjustified rate increases, you could sit there for 8 more years and make $132,000 a year. And I didn't take it. And I didn't take it before in the legislative process. Too many people are doing that. I do get angry because I can't take the lies anymore and the hatred that we have. We are a country divided. As I said before, I'm an independent now because I understand that partisan most of the times really means nothing. They say one thing, what's a conservative, what's a liberal, it's a bunch of bunk. And I think most of you really know that. Partisan politics is killing this country. It has created the #1 in corruption in Florida government. It's awful what we have in Florida. And it's increasing. The study by the Florida, I wouldn't even get into that. Let me just show you some of the mail-outs that come out are just total lies. Not just this race, but many races. Mr. Smith secured $1 billion in Florida for schools. He didn't secure $1 billion. What they didn't tell you in this is that they stole $2 billion the year before. And the only reason they put $1 billion back in was because they heard you screaming. The name. Listen to this. The name on this mail-out, the name on this mail-out comes from those fancy-sounding PACs by the Florida Federation for Children. Wow, but they're sponsored and funded by the American Federation for Children, and their primary goal is to promote school privatization. They're taking the money from public, and that may be fine, but don't lie. Don't lie and misrepresent. So I'm here to tell you today, I've been a hard worker for you. My constituent services were incredible in this county, and I'm proud to have said that because I had staff that helped me do that also. And I will bring back for you some honesty and integrity in the legislature that is lost today. And you can count on me thinking on my own when it comes to making decisions that are important to you in our community. And I need your help to get some adults back in this process and some honesty back in Florida, Tallahassee. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I hope you heard tonight. Listen to the agenda of the future that matters for Citrus County. I hope you heard strongly talking about things done in the past and not what's being done for the future. When you look at the young men and women in this room, that's where my emphasis is. We have unemployment. You have help wanted signs on the streets on 44. We do not have the skill sets to fill those jobs. You want budgets to be filled? You turn around the economy. And if special interest is an enterprise zone or helping a local business have a level playing field against Applebee's and Outback, then I guess I'm with special interest. If that special interest is one of our local restaurants, you're darn right, I'm with them. Being sold out. You know, when asked before, what would you do differently? My opponent said, I wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid. Wow, that's a plan for the future. I wouldn't drink the Kool-Aid. Truth is we have always talked about having legislators who work across party lines. We want leaders to go up there and make good legislation. Do we want people up there to just be saying no? Or do we want people up there to put Citrus County on the map to make sure we get the infrastructure and the jobs, the education, and everything we need? You know, my opponent mentioned Florida being the #1 corrupt state. She left out the part where that study said from 2000 to 2010, Florida was the #1 corrupt state. And that's why you elected me in the first place, is to go up there and to fix it. The one thing that's wrong on that flyer, is it should have said the word help. I helped secure $1 billion for education. I spent numerous days in the classroom and talked to educators. I understand our education system funding is to fix the 30%, the ESE students, the students who are challenged and are struggling because of financial problems, home problems. That's 30% of the problem. And by learning that and going up there, I have made sure that we put more money into education. We supported the push to make sure we kept sparsity. Sparsity is funding that comes from Miami down to us into our school system. Why? Because I don't work party lines. I work Citrus County. I'm not fighting to represent Tallahassee. I'm fighting to represent you. Last but not least, the Republican leadership is currently out there saying right now that we want reform. We want ethics reform. Look it up. Senator Gates wants ethics reform, and guess what? That's what you're going to get. Thank you.